Well, this Wednesday, we're looking at Numbers 3 and 4. Again, two more chapters as we start into this book of Numbers. And here we have the numbering of the Levites and a description of their duties. And here's a part I just almost right from the get go. Here's kind of the point of these two chapters that I want to make for us and draw as a principle of application. Every duty is important because it's part of a bigger picture, part of a whole. Each of the different clans, they're doing different things related to the tabernacle so that it can all be done and everyone kind of is working together. Now, in here is also this kind of the threat of death. If they're not going to do things appropriately, they could die. And again, that strikes us, I think, today, especially post Jesus in a new covenant, very different culture, as really, and we struggle with that. It just doesn't seem to connect to our picture of God or the picture of God that we want to have. We need to remember that God is holy. And this is not a defense of God or justification of God making this. This is just a statement of fact. God is holy. God also desires to be as close as possible with those he's made in his image and close as possible to those he's called to reflect him to all those made in his image. And here's the reality of holiness. It's dangerous. Holiness is dangerous to unholiness. Just as darkness it can't stand in the face of light. Whatever the strength of light is, it pushes back darkness. Darkness can't overwhelm light. Well, when you have a holy God, as Isaiah 6, holy, holy, holy. There is no being more pure, more separated from all that is wrong, unjust, evil, oppressive. There's no being greater in its and can God's innate holiness. Injustice, sin, evil cannot stand in his presence. And so this is not God kind of going to these Levites saying, I'm a grumpy God, and if you don't do things my way, if you don't do it like I want, I'm just going to kill you. That's not what this is. This is God going, I want to be as close to you as I can, but I need you to know you got to be careful. Because if you approach in a way that doesn't connect to my holiness, you won't stand. It's like as parents with kids, we teach our children a respect for fire, right? Campfires in our backyard and telling, first the boys, now the girls, yeah, you can put a stick on the fire, but here's how you need to do it. Or you don't just toss something in. Teach them how to respect so they don't get hurt or others don't get hurt. This is the idea. It's God as a parent to his kids, in a sense, his nation. Here's how to be careful. Again, there's that mention of Aaron's two sons who died back in the book of Leviticus. We read of that, and they're going to get mentioned again later on in Numbers. Again, remember the comment I made yesterday. God is seeking to shape a people to be those who would be careful so that they could reflect him to the nations around him. And that just doesn't happen any way we feel, we want, we think. We reflect God when we're walking in step with him. Chapter 3, verse 10 has this line that no unauthorized person could approach. And again, we live in a covenant today, thanks to Jesus, where there is no unauthorized follower of Jesus. We all are able to approach God because God has sent his Spirit to dwell within us. Last thing I just want to make mention real quick here is this idea of the redemption of the firstborn that happens. It's referenced. If you remember back the final plague, the 10th plague in Egypt was the plague of the firstborn, and God spared all the firstborn of Israel. The Passover, the angel of death passed over. And so what God did was kind of this idea that I'm accepting the tribe of Levi as mine. Like, I passed over the firstborn of the nation, but there still is, you're mine. And so instead of kind of the death of the firstborn of Israel, God's saying, I'm going to claim for my own purposes. I'm going to claim for my working within you. I'm going to claim the Levites as a tribe. And so there's this thing where how many firstborn were there and how many Levites are there? There's a bit of a discrepancy. And then there's this offering of silver as kind of a purchase price. There's also this idea that, as I've been reading, that scholars saying there was this cultural idea too, where in Egypt, the Israelites were pharaohs. And so God was kind of redeeming and rescuing in ancient culture, and including even in New Testament culture, has also kind of this idea of purchase, that God was kind of purchasing out of slavery, rescuing, redeeming out of slavery. And so where this cost, or the price of the silver, is kind of this slave price, that there's this reminder to Israel that God is saying, you once were Pharaoh's, now you are mine. And that also is tied into the New Testament. Paul will talk about this and use this image in Romans chapter 6, for example. Here, so two kind of thoughts as application here. Every person has a role within the church. Just like all the Levites had a role within the construction and moving and care for the items of the tabernacle, there's a picture, First Corinthians chapter 12, where we all are gifted by the Holy Spirit as followers of Jesus to have a role within the church. Don't think church building, think the body of Christians, the people who are the church. You have a role. You have gifts to bless your brothers and sisters and to work with your brothers and sisters to bless others. All of us. And we do this because we are owned by God. As Paul would say, we are not our own. We've been bought with a price. It wasn't silver. It was the blood of God himself in the person of Jesus. We're not our own. We're bought with a price. We've been empowered, gifted by the Holy Spirit to serve and bless others. Ask God how he is looking to use you today. And as you do, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you, and today would you know his peace. God bless.